Most of you aren't subscribed. Make sure to slice the subscribe button, as it helps out the channel. Without further ado, struck by a truck, our protagonist is suddenly transported to a fantasy world, observing mysterious creatures in the night sky. Noting his new sword-like form, he hears a voice in his head, wondering if this is all a hallucination, but reasons that everything feels too real. Realizing this setup is quite unique compared to the stories he's read, he wonders if he has overpowered abilities, pulling up his inventory. With a screen popping up, our protagonist learns he is classified as an intelligent weapon, having skills like regeneration and telekinesis. Admiring his own unique sword body, our protagonist wonders if he's a rare item, only to realize several goblins attempting to pull him out from where he's standing. Not wanting such mindless creatures touching his blade, he glows, scaring the creatures off, but this makes the creatures spit on him. Realizing this means war, our protagonist makes use of his telekinesis, pulling himself out of the ground. Observing the goblins below, our protagonist begins charging at the creatures, easily slaying one, by breaking its crystal core. Upon breaking a core, his sword body glows for a second, only for him to continue to slaughter the remaining goblins. Seeing several screens pop up, our protagonist realizes that he has collected 3 crystals, having destroyed 3 of the goblins' cores. Additionally, he had stolen the goblin's skills, suddenly hearing a voice that asked if he wanted to try out his newly acquired skills. Accepting the offer, our protagonist begins harvesting a leftover goblin core, which upon breaking, he absorbs. Placing himself back into his stand, our protagonist notes how lonely it is without a wielder, vowing to grow stronger, so people would want to use him. At the same time, a mysterious catgirl glares into the night sky. As her captives scoff at her fragile state, she continues to wish for strength, swearing to be free one day. The next day, our protagonist notes how he can only use his telekinesis for 3 minutes, as it absorbs a huge amount of mana. Encountering a strange tentacle creature, our protagonist is suddenly pulled in, realizing that his mana is being drained, due to the monster's unique skill. Wanting that ability, our protagonist breaks free, killing the creature, gaining mana drain, along with the ability to float. With extended air time, our protagonist takes on a centipede, cleanly chopping it up, only to realize that he's acquired enough cores to be granted 10 evolution points. With these points, he tries putting some in his MP, seeing his mana pool grow substantially. Next he puts some in attack power, seeing his damage spike. Now knowing a useful method to grow stronger, our protagonist gets pumped, but still feels very lonely. Having tracked down a goblin's nest, our protagonist swiftly begins dismantling his way into the epicenter of the nest. Having spotted the Goblin King, our protagonist launches himself at his enemy, decapitating and acquiring the king's skills. Spotting a goblin mage, our protagonist gets excited, as he kills and acquires the creature's magical capabilities. Having cleaned out the nest, our protagonist realizes that gaining the same skills multiple times instead evolves the already existing one to a higher level. This means that the person wielding him will appear, as if they were a master swordsman. Cutting to the catgirl, we see one of her colleagues being abused by the same captives. When the girl tries to step in, her masters force her to the ground, using the collar around her neck. The next morning, she attempts to attack her masters, but once again she's powerless, wishing to somehow acquire power to break free. Back with our protagonist, he has figured out that the further out he ventures, the stronger the creatures are. Able to enter Zone 4, our protagonist easily slays a dragon, making use of his regeneration to heal up after the scuffle. Next, our protagonist takes on several orcs, using fire magic to take out the swarm, even able to take on a monstrous alligator. Entering Zone 5, our protagonist stands off against a massive slime creature, which begins morphing in order to hide its core. But using a search skill, our protagonist locates the core, performing a unique skill, beelining it to the creature's core, ending the battle in seconds. Having acquired more evolution points, the skill to instantly regenerate and a way to store monster drops, our protagonist strives to get stronger. Spending time to face a snake, an earth tortoise, our protagonist has issues running into a saber-tooth. Noting the saber-tooth's increased speed, he's forced to increase his poison output, which allows him to finally slay the creature. Realizing that he's conquered Zone 5, he has no choice but to venture into the forest, searching for stronger opponents. Nonchalantly soaring through the air, our protagonist is suddenly pulled to the earth, mysteriously unable to fly. Attempting to pull himself up, our protagonist's MP is instantly drained every time he attempts to use any ability. After countless attempts, our protagonist remains lodged in the ground, crying out for help. As days go by, our protagonist grows desperate, growing stronger and stronger, but is incapable of freeing himself from the earth. As rain clouds begin to form, we cut to some slave traders, running from creatures chasing their carriage throughout the forest. To ensure their own safety, the slave traders choose to ditch the slaves, ordering them to distract and give up their lives. Unable to disobey orders, due to their collars, the catgirl helplessly watches as her colleagues get devoured, wishing to be free. As her collar is suddenly deactivated, she picks up a weapon, attempting to stop the rampaging beast, but is suddenly flung back. Knowing that this may be her last, she suddenly notices a mysterious sword, sticking out from the ground. Being beckoned closer to the sword, the girl suddenly converses with our protagonist, learning that he'll help her slay the creature, and in exchange she must pull him out. With no choice, the catgirl manages to pull out our protagonist, whilst barely dodging the wild beast's advances. As promised, our protagonist uses skill shares to lend the girl his strength. Moving together, the two begin maneuvering around the beast, only to slice up the creature. Suddenly, the catgirl's slave master appears, demanding that she hand over the sword, threatening to make her submit. But our protagonist intervenes, knocking out the slave trader, and breaking her collar and setting her free. Thankful to be free, our protagonist offers the little girl to become his wielder, warning her that it may be dangerous. But the girl accepts, vowing to grow stronger. Wanting to know her name, our protagonist learns that she wants to be called Fran, but realizes he himself doesn't have a name. Letting Fran decide, she chooses to call our protagonist Teacher. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like and comment.